a short statement. I was born in a totalitarian country, and I'm thinking for being the first academic to actually understand what happened. And even though you guys were laughing, what this man is saying is true. I believed it. Okay, I was in Cuba, I was born there, and then I went to Venezuela, and I saw the cultural Marxists, they covered the universities, and then that descended into society. We all know how Venezuela is now. So don't let anybody, Dr. Peterson, tell you that's alienating. I won't be here in time for you that. Questions I wrote, but this is quite difficult. I'm infinitely grateful for this. I want to say I'm not ready, but what do you think about the idea that some people have posted that you're becoming a cult leader?
Well, it's a funny thing because, like, do you get to be a cult of radical individuality? I'm dead serious about it. Yeah. Well, it's just a bad idea. I mean, one of the things I learned from Jung wrote this amazing paper that was called The Relations Between the Ego and the Unconscious. And it's a very hard paper to understand, but basically it's a set of advice. It's like a sailing guide. If you're on the sea of archetypal ideas, what should you do and what should you not do? And one of the things that you should not do is confuse yourself with the archetypal ideas. And because that's how you become a cult leader. It's like, I've been watching what's happening around me and I don't really know how to understand it at all. And I'm trying to weave my way through it. And I have smart people who are watching me and keeping my feet nailed to the ground. But I also understand, and I do understand this, is like, because I tell archetypal stories, but I did not generate the archetypes. I'm not taking responsibility for them. I'm not taking responsibility for their existence. I didn't invent them. What I'm doing is articulating them in a slightly more modern way. And the other thing is I'm not just articulating them to you guys. I'm not doing that. I'm articulating them to me too. Like, so when I'm lecturing, I don't lecture, I have conversations with the audience. That's a very different thing. And I think on my feet. It's different than lecturing. I'm talking to me too. It's not like I know what's going on and you should just do it. It's not that at all. It's that we have a collective problem. We have individual problems. They're very complex. They transcend us. And every bit of thinking that I can muster is as much directed to me as to everyone else. So I do not believe that's the grounds for producing a cult. And I do not want a cult. Who the hell would want a cult? You have to be completely out of your bloody mind. It's like, what is good about that? Just nothing. So it's like, you can't have a cult if your message is, like, get your act together and live your goddamn life.
So I'm going to try to pack 9 questions in one for you.
That would be fun to watch.
So if meaning, in some sense, is the most real thing for us, and in my life, I think that's indisputable. In what sense does it exist? In other words, do you contemplate it as some Platonic universe of forms? And
that's a great question.
And how and if that's true, could meaning persist for an individual after death?
Okay, so that's a really good question. I don't know if I can handle the second. I'll try the second one as well. Okay, so look. Here's something weird. This is something I tried to discuss with Sam Harris, and hopefully we'll get another chance. Like, Sam and I really think differently. Like, he's a linear thinker. He starts with first principles and builds up his argument. And I'm a lateral thinker. I look for patterns and derive inductive conclusions, something like that. But here's something that I haven't been able to get past in a sense. So, it's a truism of evolutionary biology that what you are adapted to is, by definition, reality. Because reality is the selection mechanism. So whatever you're adapted to is reality. Okay. Fine, that's reality, whatever you're adapted to. Okay, so what is the reality that you're adapted to? How should it best be conceptualized? Well, here's a conundrum for you. You have two hemispheres, right and left. Okay, well that indicates that there's a bifurcation in the structure of reality, because why the hell would you need two hemispheres if there wasn't? So there's a bifurcation in the structure of reality. So what's the bifurcation? Well, some people think of the left hemisphere as the linguistic hemisphere, roughly speaking, and the right hemisphere as the pattern recognizer, something like that. But the deeper neuropsychologists, Ramachandran would be one, Alconen Goldberg would be another, Ian, let's see his last, McGilchrist, he wrote The Master and the Emissary. People who have thought deeply, and a whole slew of Russian neuropsychologists who were absolutely brilliant, they've come to a kind of strange conclusion that was probably best articulated by Alconen Goldberg, who was a student of Alexander Luria, who was probably the greatest neuropsychologist of the 20th century, a Russian. Your left hemisphere is specialized for routine, and your right hemisphere is specialized for novelty. Or another way of thinking about that is that your right hemisphere is specialized for the unexpected, and your left hemisphere is specialized for the expected. Or another way of thinking about that is your right hemisphere is specialized for operation in territory you don't understand, so novel territory, and the left hemisphere for operations in territory you do understand. Or here's another explanation. The right hemisphere is specialized for chaos, and the left hemisphere is specialized for order. And I actually think that is the best way of summing up the hemispheric differences. And so you think, isn't that something? The brain is adapted to the universe portrayed in the Taoist symbol of yin and yang, chaos and order. It's like, well, does that mean that reality really is chaos and order? Well, that is what it means if reality is what does the selection. It's like, reality is chaos and order. Really? Really? Okay, so then, well, what is meaning? What's meaning in the universe of chaos and order? And I would say meaning is the instinct that tells you when you've balanced chaos and order properly. And so what deeper instinct could you possibly have if chaos and order are the ultimate realities? What do you need to do then? Well, you need to know how to balance them. Well, and the thing is, you have that sense when you're immersed in something meaningful. That is what you're doing, is that you're in order because you're competent. You're standing competently, but you're extending yourself beyond your current ability. You're in the Vygotskian zone of proximal development. You're not only where you are, but you're moving towards where you should be at the same time. And then you feel that. That's indefinitely moving. It's gripping. You watch an athlete do that in a performance. You leap to your feet. You watch a musician transcend their ability. You're on your feet. You love that. You listen to music, that balance of chaos and order, and it pulls you in. It's the most real thing. And this is one of these. See, I have this suspicion that at the deepest level of reality, the literal and material meet the metaphorical and they match. And I think this is one of those examples. The sense of meaning is exactly that. It's metaphysical. It has a metaphysical and metaphorical reality. It's a transcendent reality. It borders on the experience of the divine. And yet it is the most practical guide to existence that there is. One of the things I suggested in Maps of Meaning, and then again reiterated in 12 Rules for Life, is you have a deep instinct for meaning. And that is an unerring guide to life. It's an unerring guide. But you can contaminate it if you lie to yourself. Well, obviously, like you're a delicate mechanism. You're on a knife's edge, man. You're on the straight and narrow. You pollute your perceptions and derange your conceptions, and your instinct for meaning will lead you astray. And if you have any sense of where you might go if you're led astray, you would not go there. And so there is an instinct for meaning, but there's an ethic that binds it, and that's the ethic we already talked about, the ethic of iterated fair play and truth. And if you understand that properly, it will shape you right to the depths of your soul, and you'll think, well, if I'm going to follow the revelation of meaning as the instinct that guides my life, I bloody well better be sure that I'm not lying to myself, because I will pathologize my vision, and then I will fall into a pit. And so I think I do believe that meaning is the ultimate reality. But I don't know how to conceptualize the reality, because I think it's metaphysical and literal at the same time. And I don't think that we have a conceptual structure for that kind of reality. So, now does it persist? I can't say anything about that that's sufficiently articulated to manage. I would hesitate to say no. Evil persists. Why not good? It certainly persists, at least in the world, and maybe that's good enough. Now, I don't know what to make of the transcendent reality of consciousness. I'm unwilling to dispense with metaphysical ideas of the transcendence of consciousness because we don't understand consciousness, not even a bit. And I do think it's a prerequisite for being in some sense that we cannot fathom. So I think that we do play a role of cosmic significance in ways that we do not comprehend. So we are, in fact, after all, the most complicated things there are. So, well, so that's